Hello! Let's talk about Notos, the new guy on the block. Now, I want to go quickly over his kit, what he does, and see how he has his place in Guild War and perhaps a little bit RTA, although I'm not too familiar with that. And also go over some things that perhaps are not immediately obvious. So first of all, he shares the stat line with Emily, Empyrean Ilinov, and if you haven't seen yet, he basically only needs 50% crit chance, 175% crit damage, and then as much as he can in speed, HP, and defense, basically. And then I guess you can have a little bit in attack. It still helps, but it's not relevant. So yeah, it's not too difficult to build, but it's difficult to build him perfectly, if that makes sense. Because you need a weird stat combination that you usually don't go for, right? You only need 35% crit chance and only 25% crit damage. So you're not going to be using like very high numbers in those. And then Warfare set is basically a must-have. I don't think people will try out with other sets, and if they do, I suspect it will not be very good. But anyway, let's look at his kit very quickly, just how he works.
Oh. The audacity of these scoundrels. Let my guard down.
I will judge your sins.
I'm well with spear.
Okay, he doesn't want to take a turn, huh? Okay, here we go. Right, so Sanctuary of Battle, all buffs and debuffs are gone. This is particularly useful against undispellable buffs, so those that have like filled border with blue, and then so it's inverted colors. I don't know how to call it, like the inverted colors, because this is black background with blue symbols, and this is blue background with black symbols, right? So inverted colors. So he removes all of those that usually cannot be removed. They could only, some but not all of them, some of them could only be prevented with like cannot be buffed. For example, Barunkas can be prevented with cannot be buffed, but others cannot. So he gets rid of everything. Done, okay. So Barunka is no longer the main focus. He can target anyone. Now, his S2 penetrates 50% defense, and there is an Empyrean Ilinov here. However, because it's 50% and not 100, she has a bit of a less of an effect on this. So basically, 100% penetration like GRES is completely mitigated by any type of penetration resistance. But because this is not full penetration, the ability is balanced to still do damage. And we'll see it here. Now this is a soul burn.
Yes, yes! Show me how much you can struggle! Maybe I don't too excited.
Now if we see, he did 35,000 damage basically on 65,000 HP. As because this is Aureus damage share. So yeah, Imperial enough, not that effective against Notos, unfortunately. Yeah, let's see his S1. That is basically useless in both forms. Let's say 5,000 damage, and then pop to 10,000. So about half and half from normal damage and the pop damage. Right, and then basically that's it. We can see him soul burn and kill Barunka here. 31,000 damage. Dealt more to Ruel. I believe there was 35,000. She has more defense, but Imperial Ilinov is gone. So the defense still is a mitigating factor against Notos.
Sorry.
I know he's just a minion. He's I don't know. He's like a two-star basically. He doesn't do much. Right. So let's just look a little bit at the skills itself. So things that might not be immediately obvious. When he goes into the God of Battle, or what is it? God's Might. If we notice is unaffected by combat readiness increase and defense effects. But in God of Battle, this changes, so this is no longer in effect. So he can be pushed up and down by combat readiness effects during the God of Battle. Right, so this might not be immediately obvious. The other thing that makes him, well, kind of good in God of Battle, like he basically gets 3 turns and he's basically invincible. I don't think people can kill him unless he is fully injured, because he will be like a 3,000 defense and like 60,000 HP. Like you're not killing that unless he's already fully injured. Then maybe you can kill him. Right. So one of the things that's good about him is very similar to Monarch Caesarea, that she has 2 mechanics in her damage. She has full defense penetration, and she has extra damage, additional damage. That means there's not one hero that can mitigate her damage. And this is the same for Notos. He has a defense penetration attack and an additional damage attack. So there's not one hero that can mitigate his damage completely. And as we saw, Imperial Illinev doesn't even mitigate his penetration defense that much. I think the only one that could mitigate this is Monarch Caesarea herself, and if she's the main target. And even then, I think she will die. So yeah, this is not a great ability, S1, honestly. Outside of God of Battle, what does he even do? Not much, I think. Now for the builds. Now he shares the stat line for Imperial Illinev, so we'll use her as an example. And I put release imprint so that we ignore the extra HP, just so we can look at the stats only from her stat line. And yeah, basically you want 50% crit chance, 175 crit damage, so this is just an example. I waste a lot of stats here because I don't have optimized gear. I'm wasting effect resist, which you basically don't really want. You don't want to spend too many stats on this. In God of Battle, it doesn't really matter except for CR push backs. And before God of Battle, I mean, it matters, but you don't want to sacrifice other stats, so you probably have something else. Now, these are the stats I have with health set, but you probably want immunity most of the time, because he can still be crowd controlled and you will likely not have too much ER. I think Holy Sack is going to be the most used artifact on him. You can still go other stuff, but the reason you want to go for this is that, once again, there's not one hero that can mitigate penetration resistance, additional damage, and then revives. So as long as he gets a turn and presses S3, he will do something, right? Okay, so other things that are not perhaps as obvious. So during his Sanctuary of Battle, because heroes cannot have buffs or debuffs, it's not very clear what are good allies for him. Because it's easy to... You don't think too much about allies relying on buffs to do damage or be useful. So this kind of changes how you need to think about the game, both in Guild War and in RTA. So for one thing, most damage dealers rely on attack buff to do damage. Most defense scaling, well, damage dealers like Barunka, let's say, still rely on a defense buff. Or let's say Guard Captain Crow, he relies on vigor buff. So a lot of heroes rely on buffs excuse me, to do damage. But there is one type that does not rely on buffs to do damage, and those are HP scaling heroes. Because there isn't really a reliable buff for having more HP that's for skills that scale with HP. Right? You have Nurse Yulha that can give you 100% HP. That's basically the only buff in the game that does that. So if you have allies that are scale on HP, probably good. Now they are weak to injury. I have never seen him fully injured, so I don't know how much he does. I think it could be a soft counter to him, like fully injure him, even if he goes to S3. Otherwise, if he gets S3, he will kill something most of the time. He's also not good against evasion, so evasion units can still mitigate his damage quite a lot. He's also good with evasion units themselves. Again, especially if you have like Setsuka, if there is no mitigation to evasion, no seal, no Xeno, um, and she also is an HP scaler that doesn't really require buffs to do damage. So yeah, for excuse me, for Guild War, I think he's good on offense. Defense, time will tell. I don't think he's too good on defense, but we will see. Because on defense, you generally want a lot of randomness and variety of builds, and he does not have that flexibility. It's not like he can use, not use warfare. And he's probably going to be on Holy Sacrifice. On defense, you might go for something else, but yeah, defense is kind of weak, I think. I might be wrong. Time will tell. For offense, he's probably very good. It's just hard to find good teammates for him. And yeah, you just take a turn, and then he basically kills the enemy team, right? There's only 3 heroes. 2 died to S2, and then 1 is, well, maybe dead to S1, depending. So probably very strong for Guild War offense, already shown himself to work. It's just hard to find good heroes. For RTA and, well, E7 Masters, the upcoming tournament, I think he will be used, but I think people will take time to figure out how to draft him. I think it's not obvious how you draft him, because he also shuts down your own heroes. And in a way, I think that is a good balancing measure. It's not oppressive. It only shuts down your opponent. You also need to think how you use him with your teammates. But he is a selfish guy. He just does things for himself. Another thing that might not be immediately obvious is because he doubles the stats in God of Battle. This is a little bit of speculation, but as far as I know, anything that increases stats after combat, so like Warhorn or other artifacts or buffs from heroes, from skill trees, like you can have extra 5% attack from Savior Aiden, for example. So all these buffs are additive with God of Battle, so it would go to 105%, for example. But if you use imprints, release imprints, those count as equipment score. So those will be doubled. So if you have heroes that have very strong release imprints, like if you have another hero with extra HP, extra defense, extra speed, those stats will all be doubled in Sanctuary of Battle. So you can really stack him up. He's really like, I'm the dude here. You guys are here just to support me. Basically, that's his whole spiel. And now heroes that can counter him, it's control. I do think there might be an interesting situation where you can use Ruiza to counter him. And just silence him for 2 turns and put max injury on him, and you just kill him. Of course, you need to ignore ER. Thing is, in Guild War, maybe it's a possibility, and I think it can be a fun possibility. The problem is Holy Sacrifice. Like, you do that, you kill him, and then you still need another hero to deal with his revive ability. So it has to be like Hecate or Singelica, and Singelica doesn't do anything on her own, really. Or Briar Witch's area, right? Then it's okay. In RTA, I think it's going to be much harder, because usually there will be heroes drafted to support him. There will be heroes to cleanse him. Again, he will be on Holy Sacrifice. And the enemy heroes, like having 4 heroes means you can be countered in other ways. Maybe Notos itself is a bait. And the problem with Notos is you probably cannot ignore him. I think one thing you should do every game when you fight Notos is check if he actually is on Warfare. And if he isn't, you can ignore him. If someone forgot a piece of equipment or something, if that ever happens in Guild War, just check if he actually has his S3. I don't think there will be many traps, but yeah. So I think this is interesting. This is fun, but I don't know if it will be practical. Another hero that I think can be fun against him is All-Rounder Wanda. She does a 2-turn stun and a 2-turn decrease speed. So Notos cannot be manipulated with his combat readiness bar, but decrease speed does reduce his speed and makes him giga slow. right? So I think it can be a fun way to delay him, but again, you still have to deal with Holy Sacrifice, which is why I think it's one of his best artifacts, probably. Is like no one hero can fully counter you if you have Holy Sacrifice. If you just want damage, I mean, Glorious Throne is really the best thing, I think. It's just Glorious Throne 3F is probably the best damage artifact for him. And even if there's evasion, they still do damage. Um, well, his abilities don't. You can go APC for Soul Burns, right? For his S2 in God of Sanctuary, he's self-sufficient. Now keep in mind that with God of War, he only gets 10% from APC. It's not going to be 20. I think the others are not very useful. Holy Sacrifice, once again, probably best in slot. I mean, maybe you can use Bastion of Perlucia. I don't think you should. And I think there's some weird variations where you could just copy your Boss Arunca build and put him on Rocket Punch or Moas and just see how that goes. Because he can still Death Break on S1. I don't think it's going to be very viable, but it will definitely catch people by surprise. And then you just don't go Warfare. You just go Counter. It's like, oh, what does he do? He does nothing. He just dies. Another artifact that I think can be good is Mature Sunglasses, as the damage reduction will stop him from getting one shot, right? Unless it is Midnight Gala Lilius, which is probably one of the strongest heroes to deal with him. She will be difficult to gear. And once again, you have to deal with Holy Sacrifice. And again, which is why I believe Holy Sacrifice is one of the better artifacts for him. Because she does... so I want to call this effect Frostbite. So she Frostbites on her S3, right? It's ignore damage reduction and damage sharing. So that's what Frostbite does, basically. So she Frostbites... she hit her S3 hits on a Frostbite effect. You still need very good gear for her to deal with him. And again, if he dies, he revives, then what? I mean, hopefully you push up and you kill him again, but it's so much investment to deal with one hero that you need to make sure you can deal with the other heroes afterwards. But I think Midnight Gala Lilius, a limited hero that doesn't see much use, has been buffed recently, maybe has some interesting use cases. I'd really like to see her used against Notos, but we'll find out. Anyway, that's it. Hopefully the speculations come true. I don't think he'll be on anything but Warfare. I don't think there are many artifacts he'll be used on outside of, again, like 3F, Holy Sacrifice, maybe APC on Guild War Offense. I don't think he'd be used in RTA with that. I think RTA is mostly Holy Sacrifice. Guild War, definitely Glorious Throne will be useful when he doesn't. I mean, in Guild War, you probably, on offense, you don't need Holy Sacrifice. On defense, you do if you use it. And I think this is one of the more interesting artifacts for him. And although I'm not sure how, I cannot be certain if critical damage stacks over 350%, or rather, so it will be like you will have 175 plus 30, so 205, then it's doubled, but this does not get doubled because it's not his stats. So he would be at 380%. If it is possible. I believe it is because there's another artifact that does overcap crit damage, that is Dreamlike Holiday. So I think this can be an interesting artifact for him, like that's different from others. Other than that, I mean, yeah, I don't think anything else is really something he can use. I mean, we can look at 4-star artifacts, but yeah, none of this really. He can't be pushed. Don't think he wants Aureus. Adamant Shield, I mean, I guess you can have some traps maybe with Crown of Glory, but I think it's weird. Yeah, maybe you can use Crown of Glory in some situations, but on defense, but yeah, I think I'm making stuff up a little too much there. So that's basically it. Holy Sacrifice, Glorious Throne, 3F, maybe APC on offense in Guild War. And the only interesting thing that people might be able to use is Mature Sunglasses. Other than that, I don't think there is much for him. Yeah, I guess you can use Proof of Valor. But yeah, other than that, there's nothing here really. Maybe in Guild War offense, you can use like Symbol or Unleashed Axe of Heavenly Mandate when there is a dodge artifact on the enemy team, but at that point you just use Xeno with the buffed Xeno. Yeah, that's basically it.